Al Pacino, legend of stage and screen, has a passion for Shakespeare. And he wants to share it with you by exploring Shakespeare's most difficult play, Richard III. Well, he's certainly got his work cut out for him, not only because Richard III is complex and confusing, but also because most people struggle to see Shakespeare's relevance in the modern world. So Pacino wants to know, what's the thing that gets between us and Shakespeare? Will this documentary have the answer? And more importantly, will Pacino convince you that Shakespeare has a place in your world? The documentary opens with a haunting medieval atmosphere: bleak, wintry skies, bare trees, and Gothic church spires. A church bell chimes ominously in the background as we hear Prospero's speech from Act 4 of The Tempest read to us in voiceover. Now, this might be a documentary about Richard III, but Prospero's poetic words remind us about the power and magic of art. Pacino wants us to lean into that sense of wonder and immerse ourselves in his artistic offering. In the opening shots, we also see play script pages and Pacino playing basketball on an inner-city street. This is because Pacino wants to make strong connections between Shakespeare's work and the concerns of modern audiences. But it's not going to be easy. If the Vox Pop interviews are anything to go by, Shakespeare kinda stinks. Vox Pop interviews are short, informal comments given by members of the public. When they hear the word Shakespeare, their eyes tend to glaze over. Some are embarrassed by their lack of understanding. One guy admits he's been reading Richard III for 6 months and still doesn't get it. Some folks are even a bit hostile. One lady asks Pacino if he intends to perform Shakespeare with his American accent, while another fellow confronts Pacino as if he has no business with the bard. Yikes! Was this a bad idea? Well, not so fast. One man on the street offers stunning insight into the value of Shakespeare for today's audiences. This particular gentleman seems to have led a rough life. He's obviously seen too much violence in his time. He declares that we need Shakespeare because we've lost our ability to feel for one another. That's why it's so easy for some people to pick up a gun. The man points out how Shakespeare instructed us how to feel, which is why we should study him. Okay, maybe this documentary wasn't such a bad idea after all, but there are still hurdles to overcome. Pacino also speaks to seasoned actors about their experiences with Shakespeare. American actor Kevin Kline recalls seeing a college production of King Lear when he was in high school. It was so boring that he and his girlfriend tuned out, made out in the back row, and left at intermission. What a tragedy! Then we hear from Sir Kenneth Branagh, the modern Shakespearean movie hero. He also remembers how dull it was to learn Shakespeare in school. His class read it aloud. It made 0 sense, and no connections were made between the play and the real world. Is that similar to your experience with Shakespeare in school? We hope not. But for James Earl Jones, one of the greatest actors in American history, things were different. His first exposure to Shakespeare wasn't in some stuffy, dark theatre or classroom. It was in an open field in Michigan. One day, his uncle came up to him and recited Antony's funeral oration from Julius Caesar. It was almost a religious experience for the young Jones. So there is something magical about Shakespeare's words.